Well, thank you guys for joining me today on Keltie Talks.
Let's talk about cow farts.
Thanks
Farts.
for bringing us out to a nice creek, hot summer day.
Yeah, it is a nice warm summer day here in California.
Well, it's still spring.
It's still spring and it's in the 90s.
It felt like a summer's day.
Mm-hmm.
Shoot, being here in California, it feels like an oven all the time. Devil's Playground 24/7.
Let's talk about cow farts.
Cow farts. Oh my god.
You mean like it's used, the methane is actually used for energy and power consumption?
No, let's talk about banning cow farts.
Banning cow farts.
You know what? That's funny, because the second you said banning cow farts, immediately I was thinking of the helium crisis. And I'm just like, yeah, one day we're going to get to the age where we're just like, oh man, there's not enough methane out there in the world. We're going to have to go mine it.
Let's mine it from the cow farts.
Let's mine it from the cow farts. I mean, at least it'll keep farmers at work. I hear they're talking about making manufactured meat in a lab. So,
Ooh.
yeah, maybe our farmers will have to trade from cow meats to cow farts just to survive.
Let's go green.
Yeah, let's go real green. The Green New Deal.
Let's go there.
That just sounds like a money Ponzi scheme.
Let's go communist.
Communist.
Ooh, under the guise of democratic socialism.
Yeah, if you vote for the new Green Deal, you're definitely one step closer to a communistic society.
But we'll get them soon enough.
That's what Bernie keeps saying. If he lets all the prisoners vote, he'll get there eventually.
Bernie in private. Well, don't worry, guys. I almost got it.
No.
Socialism is hiding communism really well, especially in Venezuela.
You know, Bernie's sitting there like, so Hillary, thank you very much for paying me off with the jet. So I'm going to make sure I get your back when you go to prison. We're going to make sure you still have voting rights.
I'm gonna
voting for prison.
That was really clever.
I promise, Hillary. I'll fly this jet in and save you.
Meanwhile, all the prison guards are there with their fucking
Just
Billy
like El
Whackers.
Chapo did.
Whack, whack, vote Democratic.
Me and you will do it like El Chapo, Hillary.
Him flying the helicopter and her on the fucking escape string trying to climb up.
So on one of those ladders rappelled down.
Barack will be flying it.
He can fly a helicopter. He can't fly a helicopter.
But Michael can. I mean Michelle.
Yeah, Michelle may be able to manhandle that.
I've seen that picture where she's got a chubby.
Man, today's politics in America, I tell you what, it's very entertaining. I mean, we could sit here and talk about the satire of American politics all day long.
We live in California. We don't have to talk about it. We live in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go to Walmart.
Walmart mixed with Holly Weird at the same time. Man,
Wow.
what'd they say? Somebody the other day I heard was talking about trans ageism and how, like, that's going to justify the whole LGBT pedo movement because now transgender is and trans age,
yeah.
even though it's an 18-year-old, but they're really trans aged of a 39-year-old, so it's okay.
Wasn't there that chick? It was just played, like there's a video even of her, like a whole thing where she like bought a bunch of dolls and then dressed them up all gruesome, but she married them, but they're all kids. And she openly says in the interview that she, what did she say?
She consummates with them. That's right.
Yeah,
she consummated their
them
marriage because she
regularly.
married the dolls too, and they were all trans-age dolls. So
You
even
saw
though they
that?
were kids, yeah, I did see that. It
That
was
was
baffling.
crazy.
That was actually one of those videos where I was like, "Why am I watching this?" But I couldn't pull away at the same time
Yeah,
because it was
it's like
just so
looking
odd.
at a fat lady's butt when she bends over.
Oh, whoa!
It's like, whoa, like I can't
I
stop
should be
looking
repulsed
at it.
right now.
It's
Actually,
like,
I
gross.
am.
Like,
This
you're not
is so
sexualizing it. You're like, it's like looking at a hippo on the side of the road dead. You're like, oh my God, is that a dead hippo?
Right?
Holy shit.
Welcome to California.
See, it seems like a degradation of society. Like, that's what it actually is. you know, we have all these furries and we have the fucking pedo thing and like the people that are marrying fucking dolls and
Yeah.
how is that actually a thing? How is that like when they talk about, you know, like Rome and they compare it to the United States, and we are way past Rome. Like this is Sodom and Gomorrah. Like
You're right.
Like
This
I don't
is
even know if
borderline
Sodom and Gomorrah like paints it out, like, because they say fornication, but they never really prepared us for like, okay, for an example, when I was in college, I went to college in Arcata, California, at a humble state. And when I was in college, like there was these other people that I knew, and they totally thought we were like liberals, so they invited us to a party. And when we got there, me and my partner, there was, I shit you not, there was 50 people in furry suits in the redwoods. I swear, it flipped me out. I was like, what the hell is this? I was honestly blown away by the whole thing. And like, that is an example of degradation, but I'll tell you, the Sodom and Gomorrah story didn't prepare me quite for that. Wait, furries? Like, I thought we were going to do a bonfire and whatnot.
Oh, yeah, it ain't. I mean, here in California, you have a little bit of everything. You got the transgenders, the trans age, the trans species. No, I'm not. No, I'm not human. I'm really a trans fox or a trans canine.
Yeah, that's so weird.
Like, I even hear people talk in
Transgender
regards to,
Firefox,
like,
that's what it was called. They made a skit about that.
we don't have children, we have fur babies. Like, they identify with, like, furries on a sexual level, and then they adopt, like, dogs and cats because those are their fur babies. So they even take it to a whole nother extremity.
Fur babies. Mm-hmm. I mean, I get the whole he's my friend concept, but I can't imagine, you know, as a grown dog, letting him, like, controlling his life to the point like he was a baby, you know? Like, for instance, there's this dog in the creek behind Keltie right now, like, splashing around and having just a great time. And, like, that's what you stop when you micromanage the life of your animal and not allow them to be something that they are genetically inclined to be. Like,
Not here in California. You get liberals that put fucking water vest on their dogs. He needs a little life jacket.
that dog needs a life jacket out there.
Fucking
You know
liberal tards.
you know that dog is being made fun of by other dogs.
I bet you. I know I'm making fun of it and its owner.
Yeah, and then you walk in the forest and those same people that are acting that way for social reasons, you see the bags that the liberals get for their dogs to shit in the woods, which is weird. Like,
Yeah.
does a bear shit in the woods? Does deer shit in the woods? Like, why can't a dog shit in the woods?
Never understood
Wolves
that.
shit in the woods.
I don't know if the rest of the states
But
out
no,
there have like
instead,
this
I'm going
bag
to pick my
shitting
dog
rule.
shit up and I'm going to put it in a bag and then I'm going to sling the bag up into a tree. That makes much more sense to me
That just
than
seems
just
like
letting your dog shit under a bush somewhere. You know
it seems
what I
more
mean?
like vandalism than an
know,
act
they're
of
also-
natural.
They're also the same type of people that will
Natural.
actually put a leash on their dog in the woods.
Like,
Yeah.
what's the problem with
Yeah.
a dog shitting in the woods?
I don't get that.
You know, I mean, I get it when you're like a city and you're running out of rooms and you have a small half-acre park. No matter how treated it is, like, only so many dogs can shit in that park before it becomes a shit fest. But, like, why
Yeah.
do it elsewhere?
No, it doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, you won't find me at that park anyway.
You're like 20 miles out from any town and you're walking down the trail, 5 miles down the trail. You know, you're 25 miles from anywhere, and then there's a bag with dog shit on the side of the trail.
Hey, Keltie, you're irresistible, your charm is.
Oh, thank you.
So it's nice to hear you talking. We love hearing Keltie talk. Keltie has great wisdom. I once heard, if you ever want, and this came from a wise woman, and Keltie's a woman, I'm obviously a man, like a real one.
You're not trans in any way?
No,
Okay.
no.
We may have to do a check, but is that does that break your PC safety zone?
I, fortunately for the world, have no PC safety zone.
Okay.
Unless you're like in the PC safety zone, then you might not like me. You'll be like that dog back there, and I'm the rock it's trying to get from the creek.
Yeah, this ain't a safe space.
That's ridiculous. There even has safe spaces. There is no safe space. You're in the fucking world.
Right, we're all in the world. Like, under their banner, they're trying to trick us into giving our sovereignty away under the guise of having more safety. Like, I don't even understand the argument. Like, the government isn't even a thing. It's just a collection of buildings that people inhabit each day.
Yeah, but there's a difference between somebody doing the work of like a humanitarian who's doing it because they've experienced tragedy and so therefore they want to do the right thing versus a tyrant who is just doing things only to accomplish a set of rules that were laid on a piece of paper by one or a community of individuals that dictates the rest.
Obama.
So, I mean, you have tyrant people.
The first one was like an example of Mother Teresa.
Right. I mean, and to put it in layman's term, it would be the example of like, say you're a gas station clerk and the rules is the price of the product cost the price of the product, right?
Right.
But we've all been in a spot where you've had to nickel and dime or maybe you were 5 cents short. So there's the humanitarian approach where you're like, okay, I know the rules are the price is $5, but you only got $4.95, so I'm going to go ahead and give it to you and, you figure out the 5 cents some other way or whatever happens, but you allow the transaction to happen anyways because that's a humanitarian thing to do. But then you have the other people who are like, nope, it says on paper it's $5, it's $5, we're not budging, it's $5. I don't care if you haven't eaten, drank, or had anything in forever, it's $5. Tough luck, buddy.
I bet you there's an inverse relationship between the country and the city when it comes to the willingness to be a patron versus the willingness to only be on the pursuit of money and the written rule.
Right.
So, basically pious versus non-pious.
And you got to be careful because you may take the approach that, you know what, Keltie's right. Maybe we shouldn't be so tyrannical in our everyday life and we should be a little bit more humanitarian. But don't mistaken that for like, oh, now we should go write this humanitarian view in paper form and be tyrannical about it. Now all of a sudden you got socialism and communism. So,
right.
Heed my words is like just a staple rule of like a guideline, like tribal knowledge versus like corporate written down knowledge. You don't want your tribal knowledge written in corporate knowledge because then all of a sudden it's tyrannical.
And it's funny you mentioned about gas stations. I used to actually work at one of them, and it was kind of an unwritten rule that just to help somebody out. I mean, somebody comes in with a pocket full of change to help go for gas, you can help them out. They can get a soda. It's a hot day
Was this
outside.
in a big city or was this in the country or a rural setting?
It was more rural. It was on the outskirts of a small town or a good-sized town. It was roughly 90,000 people, but we're on the outskirts of it.
Right.
So
you have those that come in on a regular basis versus like the unfamiliar face that can come in. You can distinguish between the two.
Yeah. You can also tell when people are just traveling. They're actually, trying to get from point A to point B, and they're just in a bad spot. There's all sorts of different individuals. I've even seen people in line that, helped somebody else out. Mom didn't have enough to actually get, her milk, and somebody came in line and bought all of her stuff.
Right.
So it seems like it's more of a rule type of mindset.
Right, and I mean, that's something that individuals should have the right to exercise if they want to be humanitarian or not. But we shouldn't write it down and be like, if somebody's short, everyone has to pitch in. Like,
no, because
that shouldn't happen.
There's communism.
Yeah,
right.
Well, there's also other people that have showed up that you could tell they're just, drags of society. Like, they're the ones that actually keep,
They're the spangers. They're looking for that handout.
Right, they're used to that handout.
Right.
They have no self-respect.
this is true. And in regards to those individuals, I mean, that's a sad state. But again, it shouldn't be written in law that we have to or not give to those people. Like, I go around on my own free will and accord on occasion. I don't do it as often in my area because of the influx in my area is no longer my own community, but of transients that are coming in. So I don't go out there and give that helping hand as much. But I used to. When I thought that my community and I knew that my community members were out there, I would take it upon myself to be like, you know what, that's my right. But I also remember the year that it came around and it was against the law for a Patreon to give to a beggar. Like, it's actually against the law to panhandle in some states, and it's also against the law for Patreons to provide to panhandlers. Like, you could get a fine for that.
Isn't that weird? You can get a fine for being humanitarian.
That is-
And it's usually in the same states that are ultra liberal and PC and therefore like
Yeah.
claiming humanitarianism.
Like California, it's really liberal and PC, and they totally like take away all of our rights to Silicon Valley and, you know, big corporations. But when it comes to like actually, you know, Patreons helping Patreons, that's totally not allowed in California. But Medicare for all.
Aren't they trying to? I heard tale that they're going to try to do odd things in California, like break away as far as like federal policies and like make their own
They are.
state, like, but their own country kind of thing.
Yeah, well, it's not only their own country. I don't know if the Cal exit's going to happen or what's going to come of that, but I know that at least California does think it's going to do opposite on the federal level in regards to healthcare, and in 2020 bring it back around as like an absolute mandate. Their justification is that even though young people in California think that they're invincible, that they won't be later on, so they need to go ahead and pay now the outrageous out-of-pocket cost for their potential future
I gotta
endeavors.
point out, that is a total historical fallacy.
It is a fallacy.
And that argument is absolutely mute because of that. It's not even like it's rhetorical and logical, but it is not truth.
No, it's definitely not true. What you're gonna get is a population that no longer has an option of what kind of health care they buy, but just like, this is general health care and this is what you get.
Yeah, and me myself, I won't say what industry I work in, but I will say that I heard tale through maybe healthcare or insurance winds that there was going to be some collaborating with major healthcare providers. So like Kaiser Permanente style healthcare, but regionalized. So there won't be any other options except that. And if you don't get that, you won't get covered unless you go out of that area. So, I mean, I heard there's
Well,
that.
there won't
and-
even be the option to go out of the area. Like, I believe in 2019, which is the current year that we're in, this was the first year that they pulled out-of-state benefits in general. Like, you used to be able to go, you know what, I'm paying more for my plan, so therefore I'm going to go ahead and, I've already used all the doctors in California, so I want to, I don't know, go maybe over to Nevada or Arizona. It's not too far away. That's not unrealistic.
I always heard tale of
you
people
know?
going to Canada and Mexico for surgeries out of California.
Yeah, that's kind of unrealistic,
People even
though.
that I know
That's like
have gone to Mexico, I believe.
Yeah, but that's like Bernie Sanders' 1% of the 10%ers. Like, that doesn't really happen all the time. But it is more probable that we have people on like border cities in California that border Nevada and California, and those places are really rural anyways. So in those areas, you may only have like in the California side, which is only like, you know, we're talking like a line, 5 doctors. But then on the other side of the zip code, it just changes, and you may have an option of like 20 or 30 doctors. But because you no longer are allowed to go out of state anymore, insurance won't pay for it, you're now limited to only the 5 or so doctors that are on the California side, and that's it. So no, you won't have that option of leaving to different areas to use providers. And you're right, they are going to make it more in a whole package where it's a general health care for all. And these are the doctors and hospitals that have partaked, and that's all that's going to be there. So there won't be in or out of networks anymore. It'll be, you bought this insurance, so this is the hospital that's affiliated with this insurance, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I heard even that, like, the private healthcare industry is in a total battle with, like, because here in California, a lot of the, like, Medi-Cal type healthcare or covered California is paid for by the counties. So it's like a county ran thing. And they kind of pool off each other as far as the state goes. And I hear that there's, like, kind of almost a battle between the two, and they don't really like each other because they both have alternate agendas. The federal government would prefer to have it in the hands of a county because it's more accountable that way, paperwork wise, and private industry would like it to be in the hands of the private industry, like Kaiser and
I'm starting to really
Blue
beg
Cross
that
or whatever
question,
the other
though.
big companies are.
Yeah, but I'm really starting to beg that as a question. Like, these private sectors are almost they've jumped on the bandwagon to going, you know what, you're right. Like, it's almost like they got the taste of Obama's Care 2014. So if you think about it, we've had since 2014 to 2019 of mandatory health care.
This is, you're going to be speaking in general terms about, like, the California system, right?
Sure. So
'Cause maybe
we'll just
Wyoming's different.
no. I don't think so, but we'll put it down in California, and if you find that this is relatable to other states, then you know, right on.
Okay.
But from my own experience in California and the private sector here is, I think
Keltie's disclaimer.
this is Keltie's disclaimer, that there was a mandate from 2014 to 2018. So that is 4 years of mandatory income for private sectors. I mean, yeah, at the private level, they had those that were buying it because they either wanted it or thought they needed it or whatever, and then there was the group of people who just didn't have it. Well, when that 4-year period happened, it was mandatory for all, or you paid a fine to the feds. So, I mean, that was kind of like
a small fine, though, at first.
It was around a couple $100 if you were under a certain tax bracket, or if you hit a tax bracket, it was a certain percentage of your income. It would be your fine. So, I mean, there was some kind of dividend payout regardless that the government was going to be getting for not taking on the mandatory health care.
So if you had to guess about where healthcare is going to go in California.
But that's the thing is I'm getting at is, like, the private sector maybe 4 years ago would have said, no, let's keep it private. But now they see the money. They see that their revenues for the last 4 years have jumped skyrocket.
Whose revenues? The county?
The insurance companies, the private sector of the insurance companies. So I don't care if you're talking about Anthem, Kaiser, HealthNet, Blue Cross, whatever. It's their private sectors that have all of a sudden never had this revenue the way that they did get it for the last 4 years. Yes, they had revenue, but it was a 4-year spike. A mandatory false 4-year spike, but now they want to keep it. Because on paper, if they lose that,
then it looks like they
right.
had major losses
So
at
in order
Kaiser
to keep it,
or whatever.
They're jumping on the bandwagon to saying, yeah, Medicare for all. You know, let's actually, don't put it in the government way. We'll just jump and merge in line from going to private. We'll still run under the guise of private names, but under these government rules and regulations for, like, this is the framework. The framework's going to be the socialist, you know, general health care for all under the guise of private, under the encouragement that it's going to be mandatory so the private sector can keep the revenues and the private tax dollars too, because you figure this all gets taxed differently than if it was a federal program versus a private program. And the states are going to not benefit or benefit depending on how that private sector is absorbing the taxes. So, I don't know, there's a lot going on in California and across the board. But that's my rant.
Wow. So it sounds like if you're not paying attention, you may not realize how much is changing. But if you are paying attention, you will be exacerbated by those serious changes that are happening. And those changes have cultural implications, I imagine, as well.
You said exacerbated. That's define the word for that. That's
Like played out, or like
Exhausted, like exhausted to the point of being like deflated almost. It's been exacerbated.
yeah. And so you get in this place where, in order to, and see, these programs aren't sustainable. And then you get into a place where they start, and once they get you established, they're good to go. And then they start implementing rules and, well, we need $5 billion more to fund this whole thing. So we're going to need to tax you more. And that first tax is the justification for any other tax that comes afterwards.
Well, the second you pay it, you agreed to the contract.
Exactly. So anytime they want to tax you after the first time, if you've agreed to the first one, then they can tax you any other time.
So you either agree to the first one, which is easy to do. It's like a slide of the hand. You pay it.
Right.
Agreed.
No problem.
Or
just
you
3 cents.
battle it, and that's going to be drawn out over 4 or 5 years, and legal court documentations and monies that you better have up front to cover it all in the process, just to justify why you didn't pay that agreement.
But you saved you and your children and everyone in your community billions of dollars. And let's face it, the whole reason we have government in the first place is to do the work that, because we toil, so we pay taxes to these empty buildings, so the empty buildings can funnel our collective taxes to roads and schools and things that are really helpful.
That's what they say.
To us.
Instead, they used it for 4 years of a Mueller investigation and 2 years just to write it up. And, they use our taxes for that instead of putting the pothole repairs in the road that I live down the road from. But, or the school roofs that are falling apart, or, maybe the lunch system or something. But
they say they're allocating a lot of money for the homeless problem, but it just seems worse. They've recently even put in buildings that are, meant for drug usage. It's supposed to be safe havens.
Yeah, you're right. Not in the town that I currently live in, but there was a town about 3 or 4 hours west of me that thought that they would take care of their homeless problem by bringing in shipping containers and retrofitting shipping containers for the homeless.
Oh yeah, that was one of the coastal cities here.
Yeah, I thought that was so interesting. It's like, we're so tired of these.
That was a total failure, wasn't it?
It was a total failure because it was not only a shipping container, but then they had like
retrofitted windows,
rules and stuff too, where they were allowed to do drugs between certain hours there on the grounds, and then they had safety needle boxes for their needles and stuff, and like you couldn't, if you walked outside of the gate, you could get arrested for drug use in public. But if you were inside the gate in the shipping containers, you could use drugs all day long and the cops wouldn't touch you.
Wow, it sounds like decent families are going to have a great nightlife in that city.
Right. I mean, it's a place for the homeless. You really think a homeless family is going to be bringing their family into this area to get sanctuary where they're allowed to do drugs?
No, because those same people that are doing drugs have to fund their drugs, so they do illegal activities like
break into
steal
cars,
bikes,
break into houses.
Become the mob, so to speak, or i.e. men on bikes.
Yeah, there was a big men on bikes movement over in the coastal range.
Which reminds me actually in this area,
like men on bicycles, by the way.
Yeah, not dirt bikes or motorcycles.
No.
They can't afford those.
They would roll around at nighttime and they would steal and pillage the whole city while people were sleeping.
Absolutely.
And it became such a problem that they went to the place that these people, their tent city area, which was like in the swamps of the coastal ranges, and it was right butted up to the city.
Really prime real estate.
Absolute prime real estate that had been seized by these homeless. That was an old mill years and years ago.
You can see drone footage online of it.
And the police raided it, and they found like $80,000 worth of stolen equipment, bike parts, guns, like a hash oil lab.
They did have a hash oil lab out there, that's right. And, did you hear in California that they are actually talking about legalizing the manufacture of honey oil, just not with butane? So if you don't do it with butane, it's it's going to be legal.
So, like, say you do rosin presses or something,
Yeah.
which is a form of smashing marijuana. You take the raw flower and you stick it in like a 20,000-pound press, and you
Well,
literally
what's that
just
other,
squish it
not
live,
butane, but maybe
and
like a...
liquid squeezes out the side, and you can scrape that stuff up and just smoke it, I hear.
Yeah, so the whole manufacturing
You don't
of...
even need 20,000 pounds. Like, you could do it with a 10-ton jack or a 5-pound jack.
Yeah, I hear here in California, like the general population is really looking at these things like, wow, this is a serious degradation of our social atmosphere. It's like almost Rome burning,
Welcome to
and then-
California.
well, yeah, and that's the point. Is like the Roman governors or the governor, i.e., the governors of California, are looking at it like it's a moneymaker. Like
That's all
the
they see.
Romans did the brothel.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we're going to make a ton of money on this. We're going to tax the hell out of it. Because
sure are.
let me tell you, the liberals love to tax things. Like, oh, you smoke? Let's tax it. Oh, you drive a car? Let's tax your gas. Let's tax your car. Let's tax the shipment of your tires. Let's tax.
Oh,
They're
man,
tax
the
wild here.
smoking tax recently, what was it, like back in 2017, the first of it was $2 tax raise on cigarettes. Like, that
wow.
went from, $5 packs to $7 packs. And
Aren't they almost like $10 now?
They are about
You know
$10
what
packs,
blows
yeah.
me
Holy
away
cow.
about that is like, so if you watch like world news, even a little bit, you'll notice like a few years ago there was like a problem in France with a taxes on the road tolls, and so what happened was the farmers and all of the people like that, they were pissed off because their trucks were being taxed highly, and so what they did was they don't mess around over there. Like, they all as a collective were like, fuck this, we're protesting, and they filled up these trucks full of manure, and I'm talking like 100 of them. And they dumped them on the doorstep, right? Like,
Yes.
why aren't these cigarette people, like, they're like $2 a pack?
You know what
That's
they
like,
should have did?
That's like a $50 a month tax
No.
on top of what you already pay. And I imagine a cigarette smoker pays like $100 to $300 a month. I'm just shooting it in the wind there. And here in California, probably more like $200 a month.
Yeah,
and then you
right.
get this 50-cent
Tax,
increase,
right.
or $50 increase. How come you don't have people like, and there's a lot of smokers in the world. Like,
yeah.
why aren't these people upset enough to gather all their ashtrays up and like dump them out on the,
Are
know,
you
'cause
serious?
Here in California,
Politically,
they'll
they
be
would
fined.
justify why they need to tax more.
They would
Yeah.
fine them. They would be like, look,
But you know,
someone's got to
real
clean
quick-
this up. We're going to need cigarette butt cleaners.
Real quick, back up to your whole the truckers dumping manure on the thing because they won't let them pass. What they should have did as a collective is, the only justification that they have to put those tolls on the roads is that those are the roads that they built.
Yeah.
Right? So what they should have did is the people should have came out and said, you know what, forget it. We have our own tractors because we know farmers, and we have our own dirt because we know excavators, and we're just going to build our own road right alongside of your road, right around your toll booth, and we're going to use it ourselves, and you can't tell us that you were going to tax it because you didn't build it.
See,
Well,
that
you got to be
gets
careful
to
with
the-
that, because that also
gets
I
to
know,
the
you got
premise-
eminent domain
the
on
Mallow Ranch thing.
properties.
Like, as
and
soon
That
as you
really
start standing up,
that gets into the really what it gets into is like
But,
your
I mean, we
ability
have the
to
right
have
to do
free
that.
travel
Yeah.
in the United States.
do have the right to free
and
travel.
right now we're under this system that's like heavily burdened and taxed, and I don't know what you pay for your driver's license, so the king's permission. I don't know what you pay for yours in your state, but here in California, the king charges a lot of money to drive. And the nicer your car is, you're paying upwards of $8,000-9,000 a year just to register your car, and then the
got to smog it every 2 years,
which is a cost here in
which is like
California.
another $70-80.
Yeah.
And then you have to pay your license fees,
Yeah.
and then you have to pay your car note, and then you have to pay your
Oh, we live in rural California. Imagine if you lived in like San Francisco, San Diego, or down there, you'd be paying all that
Road
plus
toll.
the road tolls
my God.
and the parking
in
space
and out
tickets.
of the Bay Area
and-
is nuts.
like,
I,
you shouldn't even own a car in the Bay Area.
We have
I lived
extended
in San Diego for a
family-
minute. That
That's
place
what they've
is
done though,
pricey.
is they forced that model to be so they won't own cars, because that's what they truly want, is they don't want people to own cars.
Seems like the further away you drive away from California, the cheaper the gas is.
Yeah.
Driving all the way to Texas, it went from $4, almost $5, $6 in some places of California for gas. and it dropped down to $1, $1.50 in Texas.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
paying
it's
$4
extreme.
down at the gas station just yesterday. I
Which is
couldn't
weird.
believe
Why?
it.
Why? Like, why? Why am I paying $4 a gallon
Right.
to drive, and it's only $2?
And
Like, who's making
$6
all this
for a
money,
gallon
and
of
why are
milk,
we as a
$4 for a
population
gallon of gas.
putting up with
Like,
it?
it is ridiculous.
This is crazy.
Well,
I
we put
can't
up
even-
with it because we're fat and happy. I mean, if you look at the majority of people, they sit down and watch TV. They go to work and keep their head down. But
And you're talking about the working population.
well, the working population is what keeps this country pumping. Like if you
Right.
don't have builders, then you can't get anything built. If you don't have road construction, then you're not gonna be able to travel.
True.
You got to have actual working force in order to function as a society. But that working force is also not only the heart and blood, but they're not actually acting in a way that, I mean, if you think about, say, 40% of all workers throughout California or the United States stopped going to work, the entire system would collapse.
Yeah.
If you don't have truckers that are pumping, food in and out of towns, if you don't have people that are maintaining bridges, if you don't have people maintaining power.
Well, and that's where the local Masons came into aspect in regards to the early settlements of America.
What's it making? Like,
Well,
What do you mean, Mason?
so what I mean by Mason is like, say for instance, a good way to have an introduction is like the 1800s. You have, your little western small towns, wagons and horses and stuff, and you don't really have roads, you don't really have homes. You have people that are coming in because they're mining or exploring or, just something new. But then all of a sudden you have a collective of people. In order to get these things done that you're talking about without a government, for instance, without Caltrans coming in and building a road, you had a group of men who would get together and they would say, okay, this is what we need done. We need this building resurrected. We need this land excavated. And so they were just the like-minded men that would get together and be like, this is what our town needs. So the only way it's going to get done is by putting our own hands into it and making it happen. And that's where we had a lot of Masonic orders, as taking, good men and making them better men, but allowing them to have community things like that. We can't always rely on some government aid. In those times, they were non-existent, but we can't allow some government aid to come in and say, we are the ones that only have the means to build a road, when really the town and the people within that town have the means of building that road if they chose to.
Well, it seems awesome that the Masons did that, back in the day when we first started growing. But, then what happened? I mean,
Well, just like modern growth, it's gotten integrated over time. I mean, the Masons are still doing philanthropistic work, but it's under the guise of nonprofits. When the nonprofit era came around, I think that really changed it up a little bit, because you no longer have good men working for their communities anymore. You have good men working for nonprofit corporations. I mean, that's really what they've came down to. They've transformed into corporations now under the guise of nonprofit, which is just as bad as the government, in my opinion.
it seems like Masonry's then been corrupted, at least in recent times. That's kind of disheartening.
But it has, within the guise of its body and the fact that it's not really a government. See, a government is nothing more than an empty building that collectively comes in and says, this is the rule that everyone's going to follow. Masonry is down at the local level, so it doesn't matter if you're in my small town or you're in...
It seems like the cattle's
That's a
coming
ranch.
in.
That's
Sorry.
a ranch truck right across the creek.
The rancher's getting his cattle ready and feeding them.
That's the beauty of, living in more rural areas, that
We find beauty in that, watching the rancher do his job. Without him, we wouldn't eat well. We'd eat rice,
that man's the one that
like
actually
China,
helps. That's the man that helps
or we'd
feed
eat beans, like South
many
America.
families.
Right. Well, and that's a good example right there, actually. So say a community back in the 1800s was, didn't have that influx of meat coming in that year, right? But a couple of Masons happened to be farmers. So they may just, out of the kindness of their heart, donate some meat to the Masonic Lodge, and then the Masonic Lodge would take that and, you know, give it back to the community in a way and distribute it amongst everybody. As a collective thing. You know, though they were the boots on the grounds that went to the streets and asked for, you know, that collective small, hey, do you just have something small? Do you just have something small? Because we're going to take all these small things, you know, and we're going to make it into this really big thing. And we're going to make it a public thing. So it's all transparent, and this is what's happening for everybody.
Seems like then those were great men. It's kind of fallen away as the more communistic style society that we embrace is you know, abound.
They're out there though. I mean, they really are. You know, I'm here, and this is modern day world where we're all wrapped up in, you know, this whole government rules everything, and nonprofits are everywhere, and people are shortcoming their taxes and getting away with fucking fraudulent acts, but yet there's still good people out there.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, we're here, even in California, for all those people that think Californians are all just shot. Not true. I know many good people here that are exodusing for the same reason, because they're actually good people and they don't want to do this anymore. They're living this lie. And just like myself and like Keltie said, and Uhtred, my name's Fjorn, by the way, and just like we were talking, like I totally agree that there are good people here. We're here, and like what you see on the camera is this beautiful creek and these wonderful things that we really appreciate, that we keep close to our life, that we worked really hard to have access to a place like this, and it's just minutes away, just a couple miles away is all of that stuff we're debating. Like, it's the homeless's problem, which we're good people at some time that lost opportunity in this society that failed them, and all of those issues are so close to us, even though we want to embrace this, that it's starting to push in on us and make us feel pressure from it, and the high taxes and the burdens of this kind of a community.
Well, and it's sad to see too, because a lot of people born and raised in California don't realize it's like a frog in hot water. They don't realize it's happening to them. They think everything's just as normal as it was 10 or 15 years ago, or maybe they'll even justify, well, you know, my grandparents complained about how prices were high and politicians were corrupted, and, you know, and then you fast forward, well, my time period, prices are even more high and politicians are even more corrupted. Well, at the same time, like, I've had the experience of moving out of California, being in, like, take for instance a state like Mississippi, working for minimum wage there, but being able to walk out of the grocery store paying $200 in groceries and having like a basket and a half full of groceries was sometimes overwhelming and exciting, and like, whoa, like how is this, like in California, if I went to the grocery store with $200, I'm walking away with some milk, some bread, some lunch meat, maybe a dinner or two, like maybe a couple of beef patties or something, you know, and like some chips. Like, you're lucky to walk away with junk
cheap.
food.
You're not even actually getting like the expensive chips.
That's
You're
buying
getting, like,
cheap.
Yeah,
like,
don't even think about being a vegan or a
organic, like the whole organic
like
push that they push in California.
They push it hard, but that's just another form of taking your money.
I can't pay $7 for a papaya, man. Like,
or more.
You show me one of those liberal cucks that can outrace me. That isn't like a
California's known for oranges. Yeah, like, I can't buy a thing of oranges for cheap unless I buy it from the Mexicans on the road. Like, and I ain't buying from them.
But you eating like $300 a month more expensive food. Like, if I could see you like glowing like gold, like I would be like, wow, that food's really doing you good. Like, but I see people eating greasy cheeseburgers that look better than you, like.
Right. People are like, well, I'm on a spirulina kick. You're like,
but I mean,
I've been eating bacon for weeks.
I'm definitely not justifying eating greasy
I can't live without
cheeseburgers.
bacon. Like, I gotta have bacon.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I love meat.
Oh, I'm a carnivore,
and
definitely.
Veggies and
steak or a burger. Or,
that's why
a steak in a burger.
It really
steak burger
grinds my gears to hear that they want to manufacture meat in a lab and feed that to us. Like, I'm a carnivore. I want my cow to moo when I eat it. So that really pisses me off that they even think that we're going to accept. Like, you know, we have some grass-fed Americans around here, you know what I mean? Like, some of us were still brought up on the 70s, 80s, you know, mantra of, like, you go out there and you work and you be the best American you can be, you know? And you're out there in your little tank tops and your shorts and you're running the marathon because you're the best American marathon runner out there. You're the best American javelancer out there, the best American football player out there. We're grass-fed and beef-made. Like, but that's not the case anymore. Nowadays, we're trannies, snowflakes, and I need my safe space and my blanket. Does anybody know where my pacifier's at? Like,
Johnny, we know you're the fastest. You showed that in practice. Now let little Timmy win.
No,
for once.
we all get stars.
Participation
Yeah,
awards.
but this is a
No,
tournament.
Johnny, there's one winner. America first. Like,
Woo, America.
woo!
One extreme to the other, which circles back to humanitarianism. Like, you know, there's a certain level of, you know, if you already know you're the best, you really need to show it to everybody. But at the same time, having pride in what you're capable of.
Right.
You know, there's a balance that.
It's interesting. I ran into a Christian the other day who told me that pride was a sin.
No.
Yeah. It baffled me because it actually caused this, like,
Cognitive
dissonance.
Yeah, that saying that is a communistic viewpoint.
It is.
Yeah, to not have
pride in your personal
endeavors and achievements, right?
Or
is-
abilities and skills.
is bad.
Why? That, like, takes away the vigor of life, the fervency and the drive. Like,
Yeah, like
if you're
when-
proud of something, don't that,
That's
like...
my Lego castle. That's beautiful.
Right, like, I'm gonna go build another one because I did so great on that one, or like, I want to share it with you because I'm so proud in it. But
Well, that
Oh,
also,
I
that al-
painted this great picture for the king.
well, that also, you know,
Eh.
actually showing it, you know, I think that's more of the pussification of our society is that people get butthurt now when they actually see somebody else's. When they see somebody else's
Sorry.
greatness. Yeah, it's dogs. But when they see somebody else's greatness, they get discouraged.
Bow down to this greatness.
yeah,
Yeah.
they do get discouraged.
And I
but
think that's the growth. You have to accept that you're not going to be the best at everything, but you are going to be the best at something.
right. I mean, isn't some of that discouragement necessary for a healthy person to actually grow?
You have to experience that in life.
You
No,
do. You
we're
should
all
experience
born equal,
that way.
guys. Like, I am as good as you at
No, you have to learn.
anything, no matter if you won that gold medal and I got last place.
All right, Timmy. Come here.
We're equal.
Will somebody push his wheelchair already?
There's no such
I'm
thing.
equal to you, damn it. Push my chair.
This is a race, Timmy,
Yeah, if we're
where
all
we
equal,
run.
If we're all equal,
But I
why
don't
do
got
we have,
legs.
Why do we have ramps for people that are in, you know, wheelchairs? Why do
Feed
we,
my homeless.
if we're all equal, why do we even, you know, have competitions? If we're all equal, why
Right.
do we do anything at all? There's
Right.
like,
Why
that-
is there
that
why
itself
is there
a
an
communistic
Olympics then?
mindset. In order to actually prosper as a nation, you have to have competition, which means you
Right.
have to have a certain level of.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree.
People
with
call
that.
it
Very
bullying.
profound words.
Dude, one of my YouTube channels got taken down because I was supposedly being a bully. I can't believe it. My profane opinions are bullying harassment to others, I guess. But hey,
Profane news.
definitely check out Profane News if you want to catch up on the Republican conservative network that I follow and make sure to get some information out there. But yeah, no, we're going to take a different approach and we're just going to give some profane opinions from Keltie, Fjorna, and Uhtred instead. And we're going to see where this goes.
We appreciate this audience.
news too.
Don't share it, don't like it, don't subscribe. I don't care.
Don't push the red button.
Don't push,
Don't push the red button.
Forget the bell even exists. Like, just don't even look at it.
You know,
Don't.
forget that anything's even real.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because nothing's real here.
Nothing's
No,
It's all going to be gone in 12 years anyway.
This is a flat Earth, guys, and
No, it's all gone in
nothing is
12 years.
real. All right.
Ask Andrea Acosta.
Yeah, ask AOC. This is all gonna end shortly.
Cow farts. Let's talk about cow farts.
All right. I think we've gone on a tangent enough.
Hey, if people are still paying attention, congratulations.
Keltie talks.
Keltie Talks.
Keltie Talks. We'll be tuning in for more.
Okay.
I'm Keltie.